I've got my spice candle. I've got my pumpkin spice latte. Let's get autumnal up in this bitch, shall we? Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then welcome. I would love it if you would consider subscribing. Today, let's talk about all things fall. It is like 16 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that translates to in Fahrenheit, but it's not warm. It's 16 degrees outside today. There's a couple trees with a couple leaves already starting to turn. Fall is in the air and I am here for it. I love sweater weather. And I love the color stories that come along with that time of year. So what I did for today's video is I went through my collection. I have pulled out 10 palettes, 5 lipsticks, and 5 nail polishes that to me the colors of all scream fall. So no more preamble, let's just dive straight into it. We're gonna start with nail polish, move on to lipsticks, and then we will end things off with the palettes. So here they are. Fall in a bottle. I have mentioned this one before on my channel. This one is from Chanel and this is in the shade Rouge Noir. It's a beautiful oxblood, dark, deep red. And I love it. I have fake nails on right now. I'm testing these out. These are going to be in a future video. So I haven't obviously applied these, but what I will do is what I did before. I'm going to paint them on a piece of paper as we go so that you can at least get an idea of what the color looks like, because it's kind of hard in the bottle to really tell. So there is the shade and it is just this beautiful deep vampy red, and I stan. I love those kind of tones. Next up, this one is from KB Shimmer. It is in the shade Chroma Chameleon and it is a multi-chrome. But you can see it's got a very strong purple to it and then it shifts sort of green and gold. I'm hoping that it will translate on the paper. We'll find out in 1 second. All right, so there is that one there. Unfortunately, in this lighting, it's not going to pick up the multi-chrome aspect of it really well. That purple is really strong in it, but when I look at it from this angle, it's green. And then when I tilt it a little bit, it's more gold. So you kind of get that multi-chrome in there and it's so pretty once it's applied. I wish the camera would do it justice. Next up is from KL Polish, which has gone the way of the dodo, but think of it more in terms of the color than the actual brand. This is in the shade Chloe and it's a really deep khaki olive kind of green. To me, you really can't get much more fall than this kind of color. It's like this swampy, mossy kind of green, and I live for it. I think it's so pretty. There she is. Along with olive tones, I think a quintessential fall color is mustard. Barrie hates this one. He just does not see the appeal, and yet it speaks to my very soul. This is Taxi Hopping from Essie. It's part of their quick dry line. And there is what it looks like. It looks like straight up mustard smeared on the page, and I am all about that. Last but not least is this one here from Sally Hansen. This is the Extreme Wear Hard as Nails nail polish in heavy metal. I love gray nail polish. I think honestly, if I could only keep one nail polish, it would be this one. I don't know what it is. Gray just goes with everything. It suits like any season. I just freaking love gray nail polish. And that one in particular, it's just a true gray. Like it doesn't pull too purple or pull too blue. It's just a beautiful, true gray nail polish. I freaking love it. So now let's move over to lip products. And as much as I love gray nail polish, I have a harder time pulling off gray lipstick. It has to have the right undertone for me. If there's too much purple in it, it just looks kind of weird on my skin tone. And I do have one. Just fits the bill perfectly for me. This is from Gerard Cosmetics. It's in the shade London Fog, and I will do a hand swatch for you. There is a hint of purple to it, but somehow it manages to escape being that full-on sort of grayish kind of shade that was so popular a few years ago. It pulls more gray than purple, but it somehow works out to be quite flattering on my skin tone, and for that, I appreciate it because I have tried a number of gray lipsticks in the past, and not one of them have worked out as well as this one has. For fall, I'm also a big fan of brown lipsticks, and that can be on any end of the spectrum in terms of depth. The one I have picked out to showcase today is from Melt, and this is in the shade Ginger. It is a much lighter, almost an orangey kind of brown. I do have like richer chocolate browns in my collection as well, but I just wanted to narrow it down to one. But just suffice it to say, basically any brown lipstick is going to find its way onto my lips at some point during the fall. But here is Ginger swatched out. Now, whereas Ginger has a hint of orange to it, I also love like those deep burnt sort of terracotta orangey kind of shades, the brick reds, all that kind of deal. This one from ColourPop, Perfection. This is in the shade Foolish. And there she is there. It's sort of like an orange-red hybrid, but definitely pulls more on the orange side of things, but it has a really nice depth to it, so it's not too bright and in your face. I love this shade so much. I also love Vampy Lips for fall and also winter, but I start wearing them in fall. And I have talked about this one as well. I just recently picked it up. It is from Fenty, one of their Stunna lip paints in Underdog. I mean, the swatch speaks for itself. It's so, so beautiful. Again, like a really deep oxblood kind of red. And it's just so gorgeous. So gorgeous. And last but not least for fall, I also adore berry tones. Anything purpley, plummy, bright, deep, whatever. As long as it's sort of berry hued, I am down for it. The one that I picked out of my collection to show you is from TooFaced, one of their peach lipsticks. I can't remember exactly what they were called. This one's in the shade Drunk Dial. And I mean, yes please. Like that's a great transition shade from summer to fall as well. It kind of like edges you into the whole autumnal color story, but still has more depth to it than some of the lipsticks that I personally would wear in the summer. And it's just so stinking beautiful. And that is going to bring us to palettes. So if that one from TooFaced is sort of dipping your toe into the fall world for the lipstick category, this one does it for the eyeshadow category. This is Melt Cosmetics Vita palette. And this is sort of, it's like a brighter take on what I typically think of fall color stories. So there you have the oranges and reds, those sort of greeny yellows and the nice browns in the middle, but there's still a good amount of brightness to it. So this is a palette that I think is really great for this particular time of year where there's still days where it feels more like summer and then some days feel more fallish. This is light jacket kind of weather. This is long sleeve shirt but wearing shorts kind of weather makeup. That makes literally no sense, but I'm gonna stick with it. Here we are. It's got fall colors, but brighter. Suffice it to say. But as we move forward through fall, we might want to get a little bit deeper, a little bit more on that grungy side of things, and Melt comes through with these two. This is the 420 palette, and this one here is Gemini. Obviously, I depotted them. I hated the packaging for the 420. I literally could not stand to touch it, so hence it lives in this magnetic palette. But the color stories, I mean, they're so incredibly beautiful. I've said it a few times on my channel now. I'm going to say it again. The 420 palette, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to work with. It's workable, it's not terrible, but you're gonna have to take your time with it. Gemini, easier to work with by far. But the two of them, their color stories, I had to include both of them simply because their color stories are so incredibly autumnal. Moving away from just browns and olive kind of tones, we've got this palette here from Colored Rain. This is the Queen of Hearts palette. This is what I'm wearing on my eyes today. And this one incorporates more of those berry tones, but also with a nice deep burnt kind of orange tone over here. And this is a phenomenal palette. These shadows are so incredibly nice to work with, and those metallic shades are so beautiful. Next is an oldie but a goldie, Subculture from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Again, this is another one of those palettes that is not easy to work with. It is workable, but it's not easy to work with. You really got to think about what shades you're pairing with each other and take your time blending them, all of that kind of thing. There's a learning curve to it. But the color story, with the exception of this shade right here, this shade is a big old dud, does not go with the rest of the palette, but the rest of it is absolutely beautiful. This shade here, it looks sort of white in the pan and then it pulls really strongly pink once applied. And the pink just doesn't work with these tones, so I don't know what they were thinking with this one. Like, I truly don't. A really nice light champagne or more goldy kind of shade would have worked a lot better. But, I mean, 1 out of, 14? I'll get over it, I'll get past it, I'll mention it every time I talk about this palette, but eventually I'll move over my bitterness. But this was like the first palette that I ever bought that I was like, oh my god, it's fall in a palette. It was Subculture. Now this palette here is from September Rose and it's called the Brew palette, and I have literally zero recollection of ordering it. None whatsoever. I got the email confirmation saying that I ordered it. I have no recollection of doing so. Nonetheless, worked out well for me. It is a largely matte palette. There's only 2 shimmers. Knowing myself, I don't think I would have actually bought this, so I must have been inebriated. That's what I'm gonna go with, because I don't know why else I would have bought it. Or I like accidentally pressed submit order, but like I'm mystified. I have no idea. Regardless, I have it. It is very fall-esque, and it's actually a really nice palette, so it's a happy little mistake. Potentially an expensive one. Like, thank God I wasn't surfing the Louboutin site or something like that, but I had to include it in this video because it is very, very fall-toned, and it's very pretty. Let's move on. I have 2 palettes here from Ace Beauty. I'm gonna call it Ace Beauty. I've heard other people say Ace Beauté, but when I look at the accent, it's not on an angle, it's straight across, so I think it's an E sound. It doesn't matter. We're not here for an English lesson, but there you can see how it's written. It's not like the French, where it's on an angle. Anyways, this palette here, this is the Flare palette, and it kind of brings to mind the Melt Vita palette in that there are some brighter options in here as well. But overall, you have this grounding in fall tones, and I think it's just so much fun because you can really get creative with it and you're not stuck with just sort of red, yellow, orange kind of themes. You've got obviously the blues and pinks and the brighter purples, but I think at its base, there's still this like grounding in all things autumn. I don't know that I'm making sense, but to me, this looks like a fall palette. And I mean, the fact that it's called pumpkin, hazelnut, cider, all of those kind of things just sort of reinforces that thought, but even take fall away from it, it's still just a beautiful palette. I really like their formula, and I really like this palette. As well, this one. This is the Classical Paradise one, and this one, I think this is the most fall of all the palettes that I've talked about today. And she's just so very, very pretty. My stomach, oh my gosh, I hope you can't hear that. It is gurgling. There we go. It's a nice mix of mattes and shimmers. Those tones are so rich. They apply so nicely. And again, you do have a good mix there with the reds and orange. You've got the yellow and like the deeper sort of, not quite olive green. I don't really know how to characterize that color there. It's like a browny green. Or greeny brown? I don't know, I'm terrible at describing colors, but overall, it's a very, very beautiful palette. The last one that I'm going to talk about doesn't quite have the same punch in terms of the colors, and yet I still feel that it's very fall appropriate, and that is the Supreme Nudes from Artist Couture. And you'll see what I mean in here. It's just very earthy. It doesn't have the bright mustards and oranges and all of that, but it's still a very earthy kind of palette, and it just really makes me think of sort of walking on a path in the woods with the leaves crunching underneath your feet. I don't know why. I can't explain that, but that's sort of the imagery that comes to mind with this palette. It just feels very grounded in nature to me, and I just think it's so beautiful. It's got this gorgeous shimmery olive tone. It's almost like a muted mustard over here, and overall it's just so beautiful. All right, and there we have it, guys. Those are 20 different fall-inspired beauty items that I own and love that I wanted to share with you. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below what palettes you think of when you think of fall. There was one more that I forgot to mention, and the reason I forgot to mention it is because I depotted it because I'm an idiot. The Nomad palette from Juvia's Place. I'll put a picture up here. I have so much regret over the fact that I depotted it because some of those shadows, RIP, they did not make it. I'm probably going to repurchase this palette, to be honest, because I like it all curated together like this. I'm still struggling with the whole depotting of things. I enjoy doing it sometimes, like for example with those melt palettes, because I get more use out of them that way because I hated the packaging so much. But this is one that I should not have depotted because then I rearranged all the shades and like I said, some of them broke, and it's a regret. It's a big regret. So I might actually repurchase this one because I think it's just so beautiful, but I wanted to include it in this roundup here. So let's dive back into what I was saying, and that is, feel free in the comments down below to let me know some fall inspired products that you love, shades for like your lips, all that good stuff. Basically everything that I just did, you do in words, please, because perhaps there's little gems that I'm not aware of that I clearly can't go through life without. So please let me know, enable me. That's what this is all about. Enable me. All right, sorry. On that note, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next one. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.